Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 149.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Hey, welcome back to the show. This week we thought we'd share with you a presentation that Keith gave back at the Open Reality Group Wi-Fi Design Day last year. This is things you thought you knew about Wi-Fi, but don't. There are a lot of things in Wi-Fi which are counterintuitive. How many do you know? Here's Keith.
Welcome. This is kind of a cool place to have a little conference. Anybody get a chance to walk around? It's the first time I've been here. From the outside, it didn't look like it's this way on the inside. So, anyway, glad you're all here. My name is Keith Parsons, and I do Wi-Fi. That's kind of... I used to do a bunch of other stuff, commercial real estate, and owned a security company for a while. But the last 15 years, I just do Wi-Fi. And one of the things I've found is a lot of people don't understand how it actually works, and yet they still install it all the time. So I thought for this presentation, we'd talk about some of the things you thought you knew about Wi-Fi, but you actually don't. So here's a little bit of information about me. I'll show the slides with Open Reality. You can get you a copy of them. You can track me down. How many of you are on Twitter? Yes, that's because you're here. How many are you not on Twitter? How did you find out how to be here? How did you find out?
We got an email.
You got an email? Oh, email? Really? What's that for? Oh, okay. It's so slow. No. I think if you're not on Twitter, you should be. For a variety of reasons. It helps find a community. You can find answers. For me, Twitter is the ultimate in tech. I can post something on Twitter and have an answer from the guy who coded it, rather than go on these back channels. Let's just go talk to him directly. But to work with Twitter, you kind of have to be part of it. It's not something you just sit back and go, I'm on Twitter. You're not. You're listening, but you're not engaged. So the idea is to engage. To form a community, we need to engage and get involved. To get involved means something like you get on Twitter, you follow some people. On my website, wmpros.com, we have a Twitter follow list. Go grab a couple of people from there. And then ask someone a question. Now here's the trick. If you want to get on Twitter and you want to actually engage with the community, ask a question. Now you only have 140 characters, so you're going to ask a kind of small question. You're only going to have a 140 character answer, so you're not going to get a big answer. Instead, ask a question like, I'm doing XYZ. Does anyone have a link to a URL about some information that was there? That's an easy question. Anyone who happens to have the link, and some of them already have them preloaded, they'll just copy-paste, send you the link. That's just the start. Here's how you really engage. You read the URL. You then go find 2 or 3 other URLs about it. You find everything you can about that, whatever the question you had, and then you write your own blog. And then you go back to the person who gave you the URL and say, thank you very much. This is what I did. I took your information, I did these little steps, and by the way, here's my blog, and I'm going to contribute back to the community. You'd be surprised. If you do that one little step, you'll go from 10 followers to 100. You do it again, you go to 500 followers. Because people want to follow and talk and engage with people who engage with them. There's hundreds and thousands of people who do Wi-Fi and who are on Twitter, and you're not. So get on Twitter, get engaged. If all you do on Twitter is watch, you're only getting half the equation. There's more than enough information out there that we can all share. So that was my Twitter spiel for the day. I throw this in every now and then because I'm not home very often, and it's nice. This is looking at my back garden. It feels good to say, oh, wow, wouldn't it be nice to be back there? And I'm going back tomorrow, so. Wi-Fi is, by its very definition, counterintuitive because we think it's something. The things we think it is. It's like a cell phone. Do our customers think that Wi-Fi is like cell phones? It is not a cell phone. It is totally opposite of what cell phones are. They think it's like ham radio. It's not anything like ham radio. We actually might use some of the exact same frequencies as ham radio, but it doesn't work like amateur radio. Oh, it's kind of like Ethernet. Yeah, kind of. It's got the CSMA part. It just doesn't have the CD part, which then changes everything about what's going on. So we think we know networking, we think we know cell phones, and then when we apply that same knowledge over to wireless, we're actually wrong. So I'll give you a quick example. By a show of thumbs up or thumbs down. This is user interaction, right? If I increase my overhead on my network component, what happens to my throughput? Hands up, thumbs up. If I increase my overhead, what happens to my throughput? It goes up in Wi-Fi. Your thumbs were down because in networking it's true. But in Wi-Fi your thumb goes up because by adding extra overhead, we go faster. Yeah, that's counterintuitive. But we need to know why we go faster. And if you don't understand why, you'll go and design and install and do things with networks that actually cause your network to go slower. So, anybody heard of RTS, CTS? Request to send, clear to send. Is it adding overhead? Yes. Does it make your network go faster or slower? Faster, but slower. But if I have a great network and I turn RTS, it makes it worse. If I have a bad network, it makes it better. That's not normal. We just don't go to a switch and say, let's increase overhead, and sometimes it'll go good, and sometimes no. In a wired network, overhead is always bad. But in a wireless, we need to understand it so we can see through some of the counterintuitive pieces. So, counterintuitive. World War II. Actually, from right down the hall here. They were thinking, and they saw so many bombers went out, and the attrition rate was terrible. We lost more people in bomber command than people on the ground by a long shot, but it looked like they were just, flyboys. They just flew out there. But their death rates were much higher. So they said, let's take all the planes that we send out, and we will go and have someone tape or paint or something and mark every bullet hole. We could take the payload of bombs and lower it a little bit and then increase our armor. So we could armor planes and then perhaps we'd have a better result. So they checked them all, and there's where all the bullet holes were. Now that's a bunch of bullet holes. So they were thinking, I wonder what the statistical reasoning behind this is. And someone said, statistics. I got a friend who knows statistics. So they took the data, huge chunks of data. This is just a picture of the massive amount of data to some statisticians over university. And the first statistician looked at it and goes, you know what? What I see is you're missing data. They're like, no, this is from hundreds of planes. We aggregated it all together. This is our data. And he goes, no, you're missing all the planes that didn't come back. Where were those bullet holes? And then all of a sudden you realize the bullet holes of the planes that didn't come back, that's where we need to armor. Not where the bullet holes are. They came back, so they can handle the bullet holes. It's the ones that didn't come back. So some things we see, we think on the first, we understand it, until you get deeper and you go, oh, it's the other that we're after. So, are there vulnerabilities in Wi-Fi? I made this slide before crack. And so, we'll just skip that slide for now. So, let's talk about things that are counterintuitive. So I put out just on a Twitter message, and I only copied just 2 people, and I said, what are some things that are counterintuitive? And they came up with a whole list of, and this is just 2 people's. If you think more about it, you can even find a whole bunch more. And I actually have a white paper on my blog. You can go, and I think there's 37 items that are counterintuitive. So let's back up and talk about just one thing. So, when a client wants to join an access point, there's a series of frames that go back and forth. And I've been using this slide for 16 years, 15 years. It hasn't changed. This has not changed in 15 years. This is how it works. Clients send out a probe request. Well, first APs send out beacons. Beacon, 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 beacon. Beacons are SAPing, Service Advertisement Protocol. They're just sending out, hi, my name's Fred. I like long walks on the beach. I transmit 12511. I'm big and strong. Please join me. And a client wakes up, and it could choose between all those beacons it sees, but no. We've programmed our clients to make a request. So the client says, I want to join someone. So if I'm using a packet analyzer and I put it on the network and I say, let me see, did your NIC receive a beacon? We're trying to troubleshoot. Does your NIC ever receive a beacon?
My neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I put a packet trace on, I put it on there, and I go, no wonder there's a problem. Your NIC never received a single beacon. And I have this huge packet trace that shows all the beacons that went out, and none of them went to you. Because none of them go to anyone, because all beacons go to broadcast address FFFFF. So we think, oh, I want to know the beacon that went to you. You'll never get a beacon. I can put a packet trace and I can never find it. And I'll make the assumption your problem was you never got a beacon. Because I didn't understand how the protocol worked. And the protocol sends it to FFFFF. So you then send a probe request, which, by the way, goes out also to FFFFF, to the world. Hey, world, I'd like to join an AP. How many APs respond to your probe request?
Every AP that my client can see.
Reverse. Every AP that can see your client. There might be more that can see you than you can see them. So, and the probe response is they heard your probe request, so they send you a probe response. And the difference in the beacon and the probe response is the beacon is sent to FFFFF, and it's to everyone, and the probe response is, this is for you, babe. This one's for you. My name's Fred. I like long walks on the beach. I transmit 12511. I'm a big and strong. Please join me. Unicast. I will see unicast probe responses. But if I go in my packet trace and I look for I wonder if my AP is giving probe responses. And it doesn't give probe responses to FFFF. It gives them to individuals. So if you're an individual, got a whole line of people here, probe requests go out, probe responses come back, probe response comes down, we have a green diamond to mean flow charting, green because I already used up the other colors. That's all. So we call it the green diamond now. Now, what's your name? Mark? Okay, Mark. You are a client. You just sent out a probe request. You got 17 probe responses. How do you choose which AP is best?
This was the strongest signal.
Strongest signal. Great. This is the way the game is played. Paul, you are a client. You sent out a probe request. You got back 17 probe responses. How do you choose which AP is best? And you can't use his answer.
The first one to respond.
First one to respond. Great. George, you send out a probe request. You get 17 probe responses. How do you choose which AP is best? And you can't use either of theirs.
Well, I would use the one that came first, but...
No. It's already pulled. We should be able to do this half of the room and come up with answers to that very question. It is not which one's strongest. It's included, but it's only one of, well, I can't tell you the actual number because I'm under an NDA, but on apples, I can't even categorize it. Lots more than a big number of pieces are inside the algorithm to make the decision. It's not just how loud you are, or who was first, or what SSID, or what PSK versus .1x, or what encryption type, or what data rates are supported, or what data rates are blocked, or what. It is a huge, massive algorithm. Now, depending on the vendor, I was just talking to some guys at Vocera the other day, and Vocera says their green diamond contains one. Just one. So if I'm designing for a single Vocera, their green diamond works off of SNR only. Now the other things that go in the green diamond, like, am I talking to you now? Stickiness. Okay, we call it sticky. The vendors call it loyalty. Well, it sounds better. Yes, it's the loyalty number. But stickiness is a good thing or a bad thing. Well, if I built this room, you would ask, well, how would you design this room? You put an AP in this room. One has coverage. Does that have capacity? So if I'm in this room, and let's imagine we're small people, we can put 500 of us in this room, little kids. How many APs do we need to handle 500 people? Well, the quick answer, this is not right, it's not correct, but it's the quick answer, is 25 per radio. 25 devices per radio is where every additional AP, every additional client you add on an AP, each additional one adds a little bit more throughput, net throughput. The aggregate throughput climbs from 1 to 25. It gets out to 30 and it goes dead flat. So if I have 32, they're sharing the same that 30 had. Every additional client I add above 25 basically gives you no more aggregate throughput. They're all sharing. Up to 25, they each add a little teeny bit more. So a quick answer is 25. So if we have 500 people in the room, want to divide by 25, that means we need 10 APs. 2 radio APs. They each handle 25 apiece, total of 50. We need 10 APs. How many frequencies can we have in this room in 2.4? 3. Now don't give me that little garbage about, oh, we only have 3 non-overlapping channels. How many non-cheating wives do you want? It's this. There is no such thing as a overlapping channel. If they're overlapping, they're not working. The adjacent channel interference lowers your throughput. If I'm on channel 1 and you're on channel 1, we share the throughput. If I'm on channel 1 and channel 2, we fight over the throughput, and we get a quarter of the capacity. So don't use any channel other than 1.6.11. I'm sorry, that's just the way that it is. You can talk all you want about other tricks, but if you have a neighbor on 6 and you're on 5, or you go to 13 and you have a neighbor on 11, you're losing 4 times your capacity. Why would you do that to yourself? Anyway, so this whole question is, how does a client choose which AP to join? Things you might not even think about are in this. We design for clients and we think they're making a decision based on who's loudest, who's first. And yet my Apple phone has included into it a black list, a gray list, a white list. How the last time I got on you, did you treat me nice or did you treat me rude? And if you were rude, I'm not going to go back to you again. Okay, that's not the actual algorithm they call it, but that's the result. If an AP treated me poorly, I'm going to put that into my algorithm, then in the future I probably shouldn't go back there again. It's true. If you were designing a Green Diamond, a roaming algorithm for an Apple TV, sitting in your house, under your TV, you have an Apple TV. Would you want in its roaming algorithm to be sticky or not sticky?
More likely sticky.
Why?
Because you want it constant.
That's the job of an Apple TV. If your neighbor comes over and buys himself a brand new Netgear Nighthawk that's louder than yours, you don't want your Apple TV moving. You want your Apple TV sticky. How about a phone? Do you want your phones not slippery because you drop it? Sticky. I didn't say slippery. Do you want your phone sticky? No, because they're roaming along. So when we're designing, we really need to know what we're designing for. If we're designing for Apple TVs, we have to realize we're going to have a massive amount of stickiness. Okay, I posted this up a couple days ago. It's a video that just talks about how modulation schemes work. For BPSK, binary, we just have sine waves and cosine, sine waves and minus sine waves. The cool part about this is we needed to come up with a modulation technique, we as in the industry of Wi-Fi, that was resilient to noise. We could have used something really simple like amplitude modulation. Loud for ones, soft for zeros. Loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft, loud. That'll work. The problem is if we even missed 1 bit out of 12,000, 12,000 is a 1,500 byte frame times 8 bits per byte gives us 12,000 bits in one frame. If one of 12,000 of those bits failed, CRC fails and we have to retry. So we're very sensitive to bit error rate. Knowing that, we wanted to come up with a modulation scheme that took a bit and delivered it over a radio wave at better than 1 in 12,000 quality. We had to maintain at least 12,000 out of 12,000. Maybe we lose 1 out of 500,000, but at 12,000 we have to deliver everyone perfectly. Well, RF's a very volatile air. I mean, there's a lot of things that cause interference. So we came up with a very simple, it's called BPSK, binary shift keying, where if I want to send a 1, I send the red sine wave. If I want to send a 0, I send an upside down sine wave. Well, if we plot that on a polar map, what happens is a 1 is here at 90 degrees, a 0 is at 270 degrees, but what happens if I have interference? I wanted to send a 90-degree hump. The little hump of my radio wave is at 90. Well, if there's interference and it shifted back a little bit, oh no, it's over here. But because of the way BPSK works, this entire pink box is what's called EVM, error vector magnitude. It's a metric of, we can say, if I missed the target was a 90 degrees. If I missed it, I still have a 1. Because as long as I'm above 1 degree and less than 180 degrees, I'm on the side of the 1. As long as I didn't show up over here on this side, that's the 0 side, I have lots and lots, we would call it degrees of freedom for error. I have a big EVM box, which is fantastic. So for Wi-Fi to go through a very nasty environment where it's super, super noisy, we have a solution. The downside is, for every wave we send, we deliver 1 bit. We want to deliver more bits, faster. So we changed the system, and what we did is we added an extra feature, a cosine. So the first column over here uses the sine and minus sign. The sign over here gives us cosine and minus cosine. They look kind of like this in the picture. The result is we can now send 2 bits because we're using binary 2 bits. But in order to send, say, a 1, 1, I need to send a cosine plus a sine, a combination. Well, the cosine peaks at 0, the sine peaks at 90, so I want something at 45 degrees. Thus, if I get something at 45 degrees, it's a 1, 1. Yay! But look what happened to my EVM box. It's now half as big. I delivered twice as much data, 2 bits per waveform. The cost was, I'm less resilient to noise. If I want to go faster, I now do the same trick, 1s and 0s in columns, but instead of just talking about 90 degrees or 0 or 45 in the middle, I have a low 45, the amplitude, or a high 45 with higher amplitude. We call this QAM, quadrature for amplitude. We're adding amplitude. And with this, we can now send 4 bits. It looks like this. These are both 45 degrees. One has low amplitude, one has high amplitude. What happened to my EVM box? Got even smaller. What happens when we go to 64 QAM? You get a much smaller EVM box. It's all about EVM, guys. The EVM is the part that's going to make my NIC either talk fast or slow. Now, who decides when I should talk? Transmitter or receiver. BPSK, 1 bit. QPSK, 2 bits. 16 QAM, 4 bits. 64 QAM, 6 bits. Who decides in our Wi-Fi conversation which modulation we should use? Transmitter, receiver, or AP or client? Who chooses? Okay, we got 100 people in the room. I'll just use the vote. Who thinks it is the AP? Ooh, nobody likes that. Who thinks it's the client? Ooh, good. I like setting you guys up. Who thinks it's the receiver? Who thinks it's the transmitter? Got you all. This is great. If I had time, I'd ask you all to tell me why you believe that. The truth is, the decider of which modulation we should use, 100% of the time, is always, always, always the transmitter. So the AP's transmitter decides what data rate to send to the client. And the client decides what to send up to the AP. Rarely are they the same. They don't need to match, and they don't match. We think if we take an Ethernet cable and you plug it into a switch port, you get gig. Is it gig both ways?
Usually.
If it downgrades to 100, is it 100 both ways? When you have an AP connected to a client, is it anything? It does whatever it wants. But the whoever it wants is based on the transmitter. The receiver has zero to do with it. Wait, you guys are just got this deer in the headlights look like, what's he talking about? If I'm a client and I want to talk to an AP and I transmit, I choose something like 64 QAM. I send out a frame at 64 QAM. Because of the way CSMA-CA works, I do not know that my frame was delivered unless the receiver sends me back an acknowledgement. Data ACK, data ACK. Every data frame in Wi-Fi has to be ACKed. So I go 64 QAM, data. No ACK. Data. No ACK. Data, data, no ACK. This is not working. The transmitter decides to downshift. And then says, well, I'll try it 16 QAM. 16 QAM, data ACK. Oh, I will stay here because this is a good place. Sitting still on my Mac at my desk, I can watch my modulation scheme change all day long. My Mac is telling me the next frame he transmits to the AP is going to be at this modulation. And it's just flopping all over all day. Can you, on your machine right now, look and find out what the current MCS is for your client? If not, you better learn how, because that's what the client is using in order to send its next data frame. And if you're trying to troubleshoot a client and you don't even know what it's going to try to send it at, how do you know what's going on? So just because it's connected or it's sending data doesn't mean that it's all up to the transmitter. Okay, just a quick view. Higher SNR allows us to decode better modulations. If I lose SNR, I have to slow down my data rate. So, more SNR, faster data rate. Less SNR, lower data rate. I was doing an example yesterday in a class and I showed some spectrum analyzers and jammers, and we talked about things like, does Bluetooth harm Wi-Fi? Does Bluetooth harm Wi-Fi? You guys aren't taking votes now anymore. I set you up a couple times, you just don't play anymore. Wi-Fi, whoa, too many. Wi-Fi has a trigger. We call it the Cca threshold. And for the Cca threshold, it's saying, before I play this thing I call the game, I'm going to transmit a frame. But before I transmit a frame, I have to wait a diffs. A diffs is 50 microseconds of dead air. So the trigger to start Wi-Fi from even transmitting once, either transmitter from the AP or transmitter from the client, is nothing. I need nothing in order to trigger me to start. I will then pull a random slot time. I will count down my slot times, and when it's my turn to transmit, I transmit. The whole time I'm waiting during this dead air, which is why Wi-Fi has a ton of dead air. It's not a very efficient user of the spectrum because its trigger mechanism is nothing. I have a big ear and I'm listening called Cca threshold. I'm listening to make sure no one else is using my frequency. If they are, I'm ultimately polite and I will let them go first. Now the way the protocol works is if you want to transmit, you wait at diffs, dead air, you pull a slot time, and the whole time you're waiting, if anyone else talks, you stop patiently waiting. That threshold by code is -82. But vendors can change that to anything they want. Depending on the client, they might set, like Cisco voice handsets are set at 86. You have different handsets at different places. So if I'm a Cisco over IP handset with my threshold at 86, if Stu talks to me at 82, I will wait for him. Thank you. If Paul talks to me at 86, I hear you at 86, and I go, I don't care, I'm going to talk on top of you. And I will actually talk on top of you. That threshold allows me to not to hear something and realize they're probably far enough away, I can talk at the same time. But for Bluetooth, or microwave ovens, or video cameras, or portable phones, or anything that's not modulated with one of these BPSK, QPSK, 16 QAM, or 64 QAM, any of those have to be at neg 62. That's a 100 dB difference. That's a 100x difference, meaning a Wi-Fi chip is 100 times more sensitive to co-channel interference than raw RF interference. We care, and we will stop for a Wi-Fi client, and we will talk on top of RF noise. So if there's a microwave oven, we'll just keep talking right on top of it. Now, what is that microwave oven going to do? It's going to raise the noise floor, which is going to lessen my SNR, which is going to slow me down. So Bluetooth, 1, 2, 100, 200. Peter gave an example of, what was it, 200 light fixtures that had Bluetooth on the top of them. Well, that just raised the noise floor. Well, the noise floor raises, it makes Wi-Fi go slower. Wi-Fi still works. It just goes slower, but you need to know why. And so the counterintuitive part is Bluetooth is in 2.4, thus it stops Wi-Fi. No, it doesn't. It just makes this go a little slower. But if you need to know why it makes this go slower.
Okay, how they design the keyboards, wireless keyboards and wireless mouse these days?
Well, I use a wireless keyboard on mine, and I never even, doesn't bother my...
It doesn't affect the wireless card on your Mac.
Why should it? Two different technologies. The worst it could do in a Bluetooth is raise my noise floor, and Bluetooth is like 0 dBm. So it's really quiet. Not to mention, it's hopping 72 times a second, so the chances of it hitting the exact place I am at the same time, pretty low. And even if it does, all it does is raise my noise floor. So we think we know how things work until you really do know how they work. So how did we make cable go faster? We had old silver satin telephone cable. Then we went to twisted pair. Then we went to Cat 3, Cat 5, Cat 6. What did we do to make wired networks go from 10 meg to gig? We changed the copper? Really? The copper in those, there's different copper? I thought copper was like an element and it was copper. Did we make copper better? Okay, we changed twists. Did we change the length? No. Did we somehow make the electrons go faster than the speed of light? No. We put in a speed of light accelerator.
You change the shielding.
We changed the shielding. Did we change the copper part that's carrying the electrons ever? No. What we did is we changed the environment around it to lower interference. Now that's my term, lower interference. In the wired term, they said we have new specs. Near side crosstalk, far side crosstalk, pinouts, twist ratios. And we made those more and more stringent to minimize wire-to-wire interference. And by doing that, we got 1,000x improvement in our speed. Didn't change the copper, didn't change the distance, didn't change the speed of the electrons. We did it by keeping interference away. Wait for it. How do we speed up Wi-Fi? Oh, come on, I set that whole thing up and you didn't get it. What do we need to do to speed up Wi-Fi? Lower interference. What's the number one cause of interference in Wi-Fi? Other Wi-Fi. It's not microwave ovens. We care about microwave ovens. Yeah, they're there. But at 100 times less. We're super sensitive about other Wi-Fi. If I even hear you at a smidgen, oh, sorry, talk, it's your turn. Wi-Fi is the ultimate in politeness. So how do we do that? We lower interference. That's why design is hard. Coverage is easy. In my ECSE class, I think in 4 days, I say the words coverage is easy 50 times. You want coverage? Add another AP. You want more coverage? Turn up the power. Everybody can get coverage. So in this room, how many APs would we need for coverage? We went and did a stadium down in Sao Paulo called Americana Stadium for the World Cup a couple years ago. And just to prove something to the partner who didn't believe us, we put one AP up on the catwalk pointing down, and we had a bunch of minions. I don't know what else you call them. Baby engineers, slaves, cable monkeys, whatever you want to call them. So we had a bunch of minions, and we sent one out to every one of the sections. Each section had between 100 and 200 people. And with one AP, we lit up every section in the stadium. Coverage is easy. Now, 1 to 66,000 people is a really bad ratio. We hit the 25 and dead flat. 16,000 people sharing one. Yeah, so it's not about coverage. To answer your question in this room, you add 1. I need more coverage, I add 2. I need more capacity, I add 3. When I hit 3 on 2.4, stop. What is the 4th AP going to do? 2 APs are on the same channel, sharing the same frequency. Wi-Fi design is about designing air times. How do I get to reuse this airtime here and reuse it again? I have channel 36. When's the next time I can use 36? That's my capacity. The other half of capacity is, how do I get my clients to talk fast? Capacity is 100% driven by speed. Because the only thing we have is airtime. That's it. So how do I get the airtime to carry the most amount of data? I get each person to get on to talk fast. You use it for a little bit of time, you use it for a little bit of time, and the smaller time you use, the more I can put on. So to get density, to get capacity, isn't about adding APs. Adding APs usually makes it worse. It's about how do I get the clients that are there to talk faster. Now there's kind of a weird thing in this room. If we put 1, 6, 11, if there was a client way over there talking to this guy on channel 11, and he's talking slow because he has high SNR, if I move and put another channel 11 next to him, he will have higher SNR. He will have a faster data rate. So I might actually have 2 APs on the same channel. I did not get any more capacity. What I did is I allowed that client to talk faster. And if I can get any client to talk faster. So there might be a reason where we say, we will accept co-channel interference at the cost of coverage. I have to have coverage. If I don't get coverage, then I'll live with co-channel interference. So, how do we make wireless go faster? Oh, come on, guys. It's like 2 words, lower interference. Okay. So, let's walk through this for a second. I don't know if everyone understands how this whole chart works. This is called MCS index. It has a series of columns. The tan ones are for N, the blue ones are for AC. We have a spatial stream. How many spatial streams do we have? Modulation type, we just covered that. Coding is kind of like parity bit in old modem days. I send 2 bits, but I only get a net 1. That's a huge amount of resiliency. I send double for whatever I need to keep. By the time we get down to 5 of 6 coding, I send 6, but I only get to keep 5. I don't have as much extra resiliency. 20 megahertz channels, 40s, 80s, 160s, SGI and no SGI. SGI short guard interval is the spaces between Morse code dots and dashes. Morse code wouldn't work without the space. It's dot space, dash space, dot space, dash space. If there was no space, it would be brrr, and you couldn't tell. The longs and the shorts would be all squished together. So for Wi-Fi, when we're going to send one of these waves, and if the peak's 45, it's a 1, 1, and I want to send a 45, I'm going to send you a waveform. And then it has to chill out. Because your receiver has to say, I felt your pulse, I measured it at 45. By the way, ready? What's your name? Stephen, this one's for you. If I have, anybody have a pen? Wait, there's a pen up here. Okay, 2 pens. These 2 pens are parallel. What are they now? What are they now? Orthogonal. Perpendicular, same plane. Orthogonal, different planes. Now the reason I brought that up is because when we're going to go send a radio wave orthogonally, OFDM, that's what the O stands for, I'm going to send you 48 little pulses like this. Looking straight on, if I send you a radio wave, can you see where it peaks? Was it at 45 degrees? No, you see when it peaked. Now, angle is on the side. So I send you 48 little pulses. They're doing this. Each one, called a symbol, is going to carry a 45 degree, a 17 degree, some degree. You can't tell straight on. So you take those in and you rotate and you look at them orthogonally. So you see that it peaked at 45, but you only know that because you did the rotation inside your computer. You listen to them this way, you analyze them this way, you go, oh, that was a 45. But that signal has to get back to 0 before you can sense the next pulse. 802.11a and G, that dead air time to pulse, in order to sense that this pulse was gone, you needed 800 nanoseconds. That's not very fast, though. I mean, that's 800 billionths of a second. And chipsets came out and they said, hey, you know what? We can sense the dead part after the pulse, the guard interval is what it's called, in only 400 nanoseconds. So, by doing nothing more than changing that pulse from 800 nanoseconds to 400, we picked up about 10%. So the short guard interval is just an extra 10%. Now clients can play this, APs can play this, it's just a choice. So we're going to play this little game here. What's your name? Steve. I'll just keep picking on you because you're close.
I know that.
Steve has a laptop. I'll play the AP, he can be the laptop. What kind of laptop do you have?
Dell.
How fast does it go? Can it do 80 megahertz channels?
No, I don't think it can.
Okay. Can it do 40s? Can it do 40s?
Certainly was.
Oh, okay. So it's in this box then. Okay. So it's a Dell, it's an old one. It says in its probe request, and then when its association request repeats it, it says, I can stay inside this box. I can go to 40 megahertz and I can only go to 7. I can only support one spatial stream. I'm a big fancy AP and I say, I can do this 866. That's what I can do. And you're like, but I can only do 150. So from your client standpoint, you said, I can do this small box. I said I can do this big one. And so we negotiate the small one. Obviously, you can't do what I can do. I have to downgrade to you. And now in my memory, next to your association table, I have to remember your box. What do you have to remember? That I'm going to match your box. But as an AP, I have to remember all your boxes. Which is why we want enterprise class APs that have big CPUs and a lot of RAM, because they got to hold the table for every single client that's associated. Okay, so you associate. First thing you do is you come up and you send a data frame. Probably the first one out's a DHCP request. And you send it at 150, which means you are sending it at 64 QAM with a single spatial stream. Using 506 coding, you're using a 40 megahertz channel with SGI turned on. And you send data. And I don't ACK you. Not because I don't like you. I'm not ACKing you because for whatever reason, I didn't demodulate everything you did. I either got a CRC error, one of the bits was bad, something was wrong. So you send it to me and I just kind of go, No, receivers don't ignore you. Receivers just don't acknowledge it because whatever you did, it sounded like noise to me. Could have been someone over here chattering. It was just a bunch of bits in the air. Okay. But if I heard them all, CRC was clean, it was all good, I'd send you an ACK. But I don't. So you go 150, 150, 150. This isn't working. What should you do? Now, your individual green diamond in your Dell has pre-programmed into it something that says, should I go up? If you go from 150 to 135, the only thing you're changing is your coding. Did your green diamond algorithm makers, the guys who coded the thing, did they think the problem is I don't have enough redundancy in my coding? I don't have enough parity bits. Was that the problem? If it was, let's try it. And they'll go 135, 135, 135. And it'll either work or it won't. They could also have said, maybe the problem was SGI. I'm in a situation where that pulse with the little gap, I'm getting a bounce off of some wall far away. So maybe that's the problem. So I could have went to 135 this way. Or is the problem that I'm 40 megahertz and this isn't a good place for 40 megahertz because I don't have enough SNR? When we change from 40 megahertz to 20, we pick up 3 dB more of SNR, because when I'm over at 40, my noise is calculated on 40 megahertz worth of channel. If I go to 20, I'm only calculating on half that. So thus my SNR goes 3 dB higher. So should I jump over from 150 to 72? Was it the QAM? The modulation? Was it the coding? Was it the SNR? Was it the channel width? What was the cause? And then for every manufacturer, for every green diamond made out there, it has a different path. Some go up, some go over, some go diagonal, some go up, over, up. Some go slide over, climb. Some go, oh, here's the best one. They go boom, 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 fail, right to the here. Now you laugh, but it's actually a really good thing. What if I'm a voice over IP client? I have a client, and I want to send a frame, and it's really, really important that I roam quickly. If I stay here and I slowly climb, I'm going to try 150. No, that didn't work. Let's try 135. That didn't work. And every time I do that, I'm wasting time trying to find the little sweet spot where between me and my AP I can continue to talk. I know I'm a mobile device. They programmed it. It's not an Apple TV. It's moving. So thus they go, what if we moved out of range? I walked down the hall, I turned the corner, and I dropped. Which, by the way, putting APs in corridors sucks. Don't do it. Because every corridor, some guys go, well, no, we just put them where they cross. Okay, you just made it so you're going to roam over there instead of here. Because every time you turn a corner over there, you're dropping it very quickly. And so to compensate poor wireless design, the green diamond guys go boom, 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 blank. They're saying, if I can't make it work with BPSK, with an EVM of half from 1 degree to 179, and I'm doing 2 bits for every 1 coding, extremely resilient, if this doesn't work, roam now. Because that AP is not going to be talking to me. If I can't do this, I can't do anything. And then they slowly climb their way back up. But this is just a trial to say, should I roam? I don't know. I didn't work at 150. If I waste my time, or do I go here quickly? And every single client does this differently. And guess what? Every AP does it differently too. Each AP, even within the same brand, you change the firmware code, you upgrade the code, and all of a sudden you watch the packets, you see them go, hey, they used to go up and over, now they're going diagonally. Oh, they just changed the code again. They're trying some other technique to get there. Is this intuitive? Yeah, but that's how it works. And then when we get to AC, it's even different. This one I published out. It's using Andrew Vannage's data set. I just reprogrammed to make it easier. It's the same table, but now we've added what's the minimum SNR and the RSSI that's expected to get that. So you can use this to come back and say, oh, I'm currently at 80 megahertz. I've got a neg 64 is what I need, but I've got a neg 40. But if I go from 80 to 40, I'm going to pick up 3 more dB of SNR. Oh, look at that, 3 dB more of SNR. You can get that on my website. You don't have to take a picture of it. And it looks a lot prettier when you do it that way too. So, what kind of clients are we designed for? Wheat or cotton? Okay, first got to tell you, I live in Utah, in America. Utah is a desert. We have no rain. Okay, we have snow, but we don't have very much rain. I think we get like 5 centimeters a year. It's a desert. If we want anything to grow, we have to bring irrigation water to it. Now, if I'm a farmer and I want to grow cotton or wheat, I need to know the soil conditions. I need to know what it's like. I also need to know about this water. How much water does it use? Cotton uses 4.3 times more water than wheat. Probably a better analogy, rice, even more. They like soak it in water. Does it matter if I choose cotton or wheat for my water supply? Yeah. So what are your clients? Are your clients doing, sorry, shifted that. I learned that from UC. Just go to the next slide so you know what to talk about. Are your clients, sorry about that. I was waiting for you to come really close and take my picture though. That's just your thing. How much bandwidth do your clients use? So when you go to talk to your customers, you're trying to figure out what your design is going to be. Is there a difference between cotton and wheat? Is there a difference between a client that's going to be BitTorrenting and someone who's just getting your email? It's a huge difference. And yet when we go to our customers and we ask them, what clients do you want to support? What's their answer? All of them. And my answer to them is, sorry, I can't design for all of them. It doesn't work that way. Now, I don't know how this translates from Spanish into American, into British, into Finnish. But you need some huevos, guys. Oh, you guys really didn't get the translation. So, huevos is Mexican for eggs. But anyway, grow a pair. When your customer asks for all of it, your job is to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Customer, I can't give you what you asked for because it's physically impossible. But no, we're like, well, actually, usually what happens is the sales guy goes, and he loves to hear the word yes, so he's sitting with the customer, and the customer, he goes, where do you want your coverage? And what's their answer? Everywhere. Yes. What devices do you want covered? Yes. And he says yes because he loves hearing yes. So he tells your customer yes, then he turns over to the engineering and goes, you got to make this. And by the way, I sold them 200 APs, make 200 work. It's either 200's right or 200's wrong, but it's always wrong. If the sales guy did it, it's obviously wrong. But we're sending the wrong people out to gather that information. We need to send your best engineers to gather the information so you can be a stickler because it's going to be your job, your head on the line when you go, sorry, I cannot give you what you want. Now, you might bring the sales guy along to pay for lunch, but not let him say yes to everything. A talks to D. Client A trying to talk to server D. Who's the transmitter? Who's the source? Who's the destination? D. The laptop's not trying to talk to the AP. The laptop wants to talk to the server D. Who's the receiver? So this is the main role of an access point. A wants to talk to D. He can't get there directly. So he sends it to C as an intermediary whose job is to grab the frame from 802.11, convert it to 802.3, and send it on its way. The frame from A to D as it leaves C, what's the source? A. Guys, don't you know you're networking here? Come on, this is... D, if it came from C, would think it came from C. And so if it was an HTTP server, he would send the HTTP file back to him. No, he wants to talk to A. The source and destination never change. Transmitter and receiver change. So Wi-Fi has four addresses. Source, destination, transmitter, receiver. Again, not counterintuitive, but if you can't see what the frame names are going to be and what's the source and destination on these, and you try to troubleshoot it, you're going to be doing the wrong thing. Access points. Antennas. We think about antennas a certain way. We think they go here. Previously, Elizabeth talked about, we used a 60-degree antenna. I have a 60-degree antenna to talk about. Ready? So, in Wi-Fi, when we were talking about antennas, 0 is where the antenna is strongest. How far away from the AP is this? I have no idea. That's not what this is saying. This is saying, if this was a balloon and we blew it up really big, how big's the balloon? How much air did you put in it? How far does this go? How much transmit power do you put in? This is just saying, in relative terms, relative to this direction, at 3 dB down, or half the energy, at half the energy, we're at 60 degrees. 30 up, 30 down. So we call this antenna a 60-degree antenna because it sends its signal at half energy, it's down by half, as it crosses the 3 dB down line. That's how we call it. So when she said a 60-degree antenna, she was describing this one. But let's think through it, just an example. If I'm designing right there, or actually we're going to design, let's say I'm designing right there at neg 60? What is the energy right here? 3 dB down. Neg 63. Good, you did that math in your head. Okay, so if I design for 60 here, 3 dB down is neg 63. What is it at neg 10 dB down, where it crosses the 10 dB line? Neg 70. Is neg 70 enough to trip our Cca threshold? Is neg 70 enough to actually transmit data? Yeah. So we just called this a 60-degree antenna when it's actually a 120. And that's where our coverage is. At 60 degrees is the coverage at 63. But at 120, you're having coverage at 70. That's still my co-channel interference, easily within my co-channel interference zone. So we go around thinking, oh yeah, I got this great antenna, I got a 60. I buy 15s that have a 45 as their 10 dB down. So would you pay more money for one that was tight along the line or wide? The tight ones cost 10x more than the narrow. So that they have one that's narrow versus a fat. They both cross the line at 3 dB down at 30 degrees. The cheap one goes wide. And so at 10 dB down, you're still talking to more people. Again, counterintuitive. You look at the picture, you look at the thing, it says 60-degree antenna, 60, that's where I'm going to go, until you actually apply it. There's a guy on the internet, I wish it was me, it wasn't, I didn't think of it, but there's a guy who goes by the name Wi-Fi Hulk. Hulk smash. That guy, okay? Who makes jokes about it when anyone says, I just did a survey and it's all green. It makes me mad. Green does not mean good. If you forget everything from all the presentations combined today, and you walk out of that door and you remember green does not mean good. What does green mean? It's just green. Now, depending on your color scheme, I'll go back to T's UC today, his color scheme he put up on the thing, he set his requirement at neg 67, and he slid it over so 67 was red. What do your customers think when they see red? Bad. I mean, UC did it because he's a marketing guy, and it's a much prettier picture to have red and yellow and orange on it. But I'm not going to show that to my customer because that means I met my requirement. What does green mean?
Awesome.
What's the value? And also, what does my client see? Does a client walk into a site and say, I am going to join the green AP? No, it has a very complex green diamond that's thinking through, are you my SSID? Are you offering this? Are you offering this? And so the subset of the ones it's going to join, it's not going to join all. It's going to make a decision based on a single individual. And it will only attach to one AP at a time. So I don't need to see my data all. The default for Ekahau and Air Magnet and Tamosoft should not be all. It should be one AP. Each AP has a job. When we're designing, we take an AP, we put it on the map, we see what's coverage. We don't want it to be too steep, we don't want it to be shallow, we don't want a circus tent, we don't want a mesa, we want a rounded hill. So my client, as he climbs up the hill, has a nice soft landing, and as he walks away, he has 15, 20, 30 feet, maybe 5 to 10 meters of slowly degrading to go, I think I should find a new AP. And oh, look at there's a new one for me to join, and I have a smooth transition to join. If you have it that goes boop and falls off the cliff, he goes, walk, 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 I gotta find somebody. But he's already dropped his frames. VLANs do not equal SSIDs. Thank you, Stu. I don't know where this started. I think it was 15 years ago when someone said, we can attach a VLAN to an SSID. And then the people who don't know what the words SSID stand for go, VLANs equal SSIDs. Have you ever had a VLAN on a hub? No. Why? Because on a hub, there's a big, massive collision domain. So putting a VLAN on a hub is stupid. Another one. I pointed my antenna there. Peter, I'm sending you lots of signal. That is not where the antenna's pattern goes. Not to mention doing this just makes your life worse. Don't do it. That's not where they belong. One of the other things that's terrible, this is from the US where they have a company called AT&T, and their marketing slogan for years has been, more bars in more places. Bars have nothing to do with Wi-Fi. Now, the ones you go and get drunk in, they have, you can talk Wi-Fi there. But the little bars on our screens, they don't mean anything, and yet our customers see it. The other thing our customers have trouble with is just the word DB. I was at a school district, and they had me come in to talk because all the parents were concerned about Wi-Fi's killing the children. Think of the children. And if you design your Wi-Fi to neg 70, well, I'll make it even easier. You design hot Wi-Fi. You design so that every student is getting neg 60 at their desk. Neg 60. That's strong. It's 1 billion times less than the cell phone the mother called the school to complain about. 1 billion. Now, I was at a school district and complaining, and the lady goes, but it's minus 70 DBADs. And I went, what? She goes, DBAD, they're really bad, they're DBAD. I'm like, that is not what that means. And the negative means really small, not really bad. And so some of our customers, even manager folks, just don't get the whole DB thing. They don't call it DBAD. They just don't understand the ratios between there. So you need to try to do things in percentages rather than DBs if you can get away with it. I love this one. The first set of non-overlapping channels compared to the second set of half-overlapping channels. It's okay. My wife didn't cheat with the other guy. She just went halfway. There is no half. You're either sharing the frequency with me and we're playing nice together, or we're fighting over it. This is going to lower. This one actually has your throughput going at less than half of what it should. Rate limiting. We all think, and this is one that comes from wired networking, the whole overhead up, throughput down. And I came up with this one when I was in Australia, because they have this idea that packets are sacred. If I give them to you, then you're taking them from him. So I'm going to rate limit you. I'm not going to let you use your data because it costs money. And I'm going to take it away from you because I don't want you stealing it. In a hotel, we need to turn rate limiting on so people don't do their stuff. And it's a mean, vindictive way because I got to protect my throughput. So a couple weeks ago, I did a podcast interview with a guy that followed my recommendation in spite of the fact that his boss said, that sounds so stupid. At a huge international airport, some 100 to 200,000 people a day using their network, and no matter what they went their rate limit on 10 meg, 5 meg, they got down to 2 meg, trying to save their network. And he goes, well, Keith said we should just turn it off. And they got rid of rate limiting, and their network throughput went up 10x. It's counterintuitive, because we think that we're trying to protect this thing. What is the thing in Wi-Fi we have the least of? Airtime. If I make you go slow, I just increased your airtime. The thing I have the least of, I just made you take more of.
So you were talking about rate limiting the transmit speed of the client device?
No, just on the network. Because if you're going to download a movie, you're going to download the movie. If you sit there and it takes 2 hours or it takes 2 seconds, you're going to download the movie. You didn't save your throughput to the internet at all. I took the whole movie. Give it to me in 2 seconds and I will stop using your network. I know, mind's blown. When Wi-Fi problems aren't. Here's a hotel I was at. I have a MacBook that can go 1.3 gig. The AP in this case could only do 866. I'm sorry, it was slow. I'm connected at 866. I've got 80 megahertz channel. I've got 41 SNR. I'm maintaining MCS of 9. That is as good as that AP can do. I have fantastic Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi could not have been better. In fact, this is rare. This is 256 QAM in a hotel. And that was my throughput. Now you laugh. Is this a wireless problem or a wired problem? How do you know? So one of the things I said a couple minutes ago is you need to know what your MCS is now. What modulation scheme am I using? Be able to go out to somebody's client and walk up to them and put a command in, either a net shell command, or on a Mac you just option drop down. That's why a lot of Wi-Fi guys use Macs, because they're so much better. Was that a Apple 10s came out today? I just wanted Apple to know I just said something good about you. Come on, Apple 10. If you don't know what your MCS is, how do you know what your connection is? Now I have this app that shows me live. I can put it on my screen, and it shows me what my MCS is live. If you have good Wi-Fi and you're maintaining 64 QAM, you don't have a Wi-Fi problem. And for this fast is all it takes to look at the two and say, oh, someone complained, the Wi-Fi is slow. The Wi-Fi is only slow if the Wi-Fi is slow. If you're getting 64 QAM, that means the transmitter is happy. Hello, I can send at 64 QAM, and every time I send you, when you send me back an ACK, yay! That's what we're after. Make sure you know the difference between wired and wireless issues. Now, there's a whole bunch more I could go into. These are just simple little counterintuitive things in a graphic. I think the first time I saw this in physics in high school, when my instructor said, if you have red and green and blue, you get white. What? Light. No, you get black. Well, that's for reflective, but for light, you get white. It doesn't make sense until you go, oh, white light's made up of all the other lights, so then, yeah. You just have to think through it. I'm just saying for Wi-Fi stuff, you should think through it. This is from a pill bottle my wife had. She brought it to me. She thought it was funny. Do you close tightly to push down open? So a whole bunch of them to play with. One final one there. So how to engage in community? Get on Slack, get on Twitter, help with an issue, report what you did, and give back. Write a blog. How many of you have blogs? Okay, let's reverse. How many of you don't have a blog? Leave your hand up. I hereby promise. For more information, there's CWNP training, which is vendor neutral training. My website's wmpros.com. Everything on there is free. I believe knowledge is like manure. If you spread it around, things grow. If you hang on to it, you stink. So don't hang on to knowledge, give it away. Get involved in the Twitter community. There's a lot of vendor-specific training. We have some ECHO training coming up with Open Reality. We just finished one this week. There's another one in December, one in January and March. See the Open Reality guys if you want to go that way. And that's all.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter @Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.